Welcome everyone to the third SCM Live Zoomcast. Over the next 30 minutes, we'll look at a 6-car snapshot of the collector car market with 2 experts from the SCM family. I'm John Nickus, and I'm standing in for Keith Martin as he and Bradley experience the great outdoors at Yellowstone. SCM is always focused on auction reportage, and SCM Live does the exact same thing, but with an interactive spin, allowing you the chance to see how our experts reach their conclusions. Today, our focus is on 6 vehicles currently offered for sale on Bring a Trailer. Our 2 panelists have picked 4 cars and 2 motorcycles to look at. They'll explain their choices and then predict the final hammer price for your education and entertainment. At the end of the session, you'll have to vote for who you think offered the most accurate prediction. And then we'll take a look back and circle next week and see who was the most accurate in real life. But before we do that, let's take a look back at last week's predictions and see how that panel did. And by looking at the results, we had our 3 Mercedes experts, Pierre Hidari, Alan Stevens, and Dean Lumbach, all of whom did a pretty good job and were all pretty accurate. But our online Oracle of the Week winner is Pierre Hidari, who will receive this virtual crown and then absolutely nothing else of tangible value. So Jeff and Summer, one of the 2 of you will actually be one of the fortunate winners of this mythical prize. So without further
I congratulate Summer in advance for his win.
Okay, well, the fix is not going to be in this time. We'll actually wait for the final results. But if anyone out there wants to submit questions, go to the bottom of your screen and hover over the little chat icon. And you can type in your questions, and Brian Baker back at SCM headquarters will feed them to me on my phone, and hopefully I'll be able to integrate them into our conversation. Before we begin though, I'd like to thank the team that makes this all possible. Kudos to Jim Pickering, SCM's managing editor, and Brian Baker, our IT manager and resident expert on Japanese cars. If you want to learn more about these increasingly appreciated classics, check out his Rising Sun column at SCM, and you won't be disappointed. It's an increasingly important part of the market, and I think you're going to be thrilled at what you read. I'd also like to thank our expressive, our wonderful sponsors today, Bruce and Spencer Trenery at Fantasy Junction, Bill Noon at Symbolic Motors, and David and Linda Wilson at Intercity Lines. And here's today's SCM subscription special, which you're free to share with all your friends and favorite acquaintances. Go to www.sportscarmarket.com/Zoom, and you'll find an exclusive 25% discount on our print and digital package, which also includes access to 1 full year of back issues. You'll get all this for just $52. And as Keith tells me, that's just $4.33 a month, less than the cost of a Big Mac, a Starbucks latte, or the latest edition of the National Enquirer, and guaranteed to be better for your overall health in all of them. This offer expires tomorrow at midnight, so act now. That's www.sportscarmarket.com/Zoom to renew your subscription or buy one for a friend. And at that price, you can buy several. It's the best magazine in the hobby. You know it and I know it. And don't forget, midnight tomorrow. So having done my best, I guess, Judy, the Time Life operator bit, I'd love to look at our 2 experts today, both of whom are on the screen and similarly dressed, making me feel way too formal for this party. Summer Hooker needs no introduction around the world among motorcycle enthusiasts. A true gentleman scribe in the best William Faulkner tradition, Summer has authored more than 100 articles over the past 40 years, which makes him both incredibly prolific and somewhat old. Well respected as a Concours judge, Summer has served at the Quail Motorcycle Gathering, Salon Privé in the UK, and the 2 beaches, that's Cobble and Pebble. And I had a note to myself to pronounce that very carefully, lest we run into trouble. In addition to all that, he sits on the board of the National Motorcycle Museum and is a proud member of the SCM family. Summer, welcome from Tennessee.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And above Summer, at least on my screen, but perhaps nowhere else, Jeff Zurschmied is an accomplished SCCA and stock car racing veteran who has also completed some notable rallies, including the Alcan 5000. In addition to boasting more consonants than most Wheel of Fortune episodes, Jeff has also written a pair of fantastic books for Car Tech for Bob Wilson up in Minnesota on Subaru performance and automotive welding. And he has just assumed the editorial reins of The Star, the magazine for the Mercedes-Benz Club of America. So Jeff, thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
All right. So to kick things off, Jeff, in one word, what's the state of the market in, say, the under $50,000 segment?
Hot.
That's good, because yesterday I asked the same question in practice and he responded with 3 words. So overnight, Jeff has managed to count, so that's good. And can you explain what you mean by hot?
I mean, cars are moving. They're moving at great prices. As I was saying before we came officially got on the broadcast here, 2 weeks ago I was on the panel, and all of the sales, all of my predictions were far short. The bidding went higher than I expected on everything, and so yeah, it's hot. People have money to spend, and they're spending it.
Summer, what's your take on that part of the market?
It's doing well, or one word, well. Recently I was watching Mecum seeing some bikes that went across there. They set a record in an upper end bike. But as we talked in the past, people are at home and they're shopping, and it's become an online world for this kind of stuff. Obviously, there haven't been many live auctions.
Do you think we've hit critical mass and people feeling comfortable with buying cars and motorcycles online?
I think we're getting there. I mean, it's been, if you really look back with the advent of eBay, it's been an ongoing learning experience for people. But this is one of those things like World War II. Technology has really had to go forward and deal with it. Auction companies just took up the bridle and figured out how to get there and keep doing business. And March, excuse me, the last auction I saw was probably the Gooding sale at Amelia Island. If that sale had been a week later, it would have been shut down. 2 weeks later, RM was doing an auction in Southern Florida, and they just switched immediately to a virtual format and pulled it off. And everybody has seen that is the new reality for sales these days. Mecum recently did do a live auction in Indianapolis. I'm not sure how the social distancing went and so forth, but that seemed to go well for them. And maybe people will be able to get comfortable to come back in, but I'm sure they didn't have the numbers in the crowd that they have in the past.
Jeff, do you have an easy explanation for what explains the heat of the market right now?
I think, just like I said before, people have money and they want to spend it. And yeah, I think, we've all been sitting at home. I know I've been getting a ton of car projects done. And I actually did buy a car remotely.
What platform?
What? Craigslist, oddly enough. I was hunting around and found a 1955 Jeep M38A1 Jeep in South Dakota that I wanted. Bought it remotely and had it shipped out here to Oregon for me. But to what Summer was saying, yeah, I mean, the online purchasing process has been developing, and it's developed from eBay. And our mutual friend Paul Duchesne likes to say, has anyone ever bought a car on eBay and then said, wow, this is better than I expected when they got it? The answer obviously being no, that would never happen. But when you look at Bring a Trailer or Hemmings or the outlets that are doing better auctions now, where you do have the opportunity to comment, and you have hundreds of pictures, and you have a handler at Bring a Trailer who writes up your ad so that it I think tends to limit some of the grandiose claims that you might find on a Craigslist ad or an eBay listing. So I think that online auctions, you're now getting to a place where you can know a little more about the car. You can bid with a little more confidence than you could on eBay. And so that's a good thing. The technology is catching up to the necessity.
Well, I mean, you talk about confidence. Summer, let's do the same question in the over $50,000 market segment. Does that confidence affect what your one-word answer is for the state of that market?
Well, you know, over $50,000 in the motorcycle world is a little more unusual than, say, the car world. I have seen people, you know, bid significantly online for expensive bikes. You know, going back to this Mecum auction, they just sold a Pierce 4, which is a very rare bike. It was original paint, $225,000. I don't know if it was online or there. On eBay, it's you do see them go over 50,000. It's unusual though. And so far, you know, those are only virtual formats I can think of. You know, there are not as many motorcycle auctions during the year as there are automobile auctions, although some automobile auctions do have motorcycles interspersed in there, so forth. So it's more difficult to say as far as a virtual online format, the impact of those sales, although there's certain models, I see them on eBay, they will bring that.
What's your one-word description, though, for the automotive market in that segment?
It's probably
cautious.
Very well. I have a limited vocabulary. Those sales seem to be doing very good. I mean, I've watched some online sales. I actually bid in one online sale that was overseas. They had remarkable results. I think they realize they have to up their game, and the auction companies, to make people feel more comfortable, are putting a lot more pictures up a la BAT. They're doing inspection reports that are usually posted within a week, and you can ask a lot of questions. And they're generally good about getting back to you and answering the questions. You know, I guess maybe a couple of days before the sale, but they do answer them. And I think that model is just going to get more refined. It's interesting, in August we have some big sales coming up that would have been at Pebble Beach. All those companies have gone to a virtual format, and they have instituted new processes to make people feel comfortable as far as placing vehicles in a warehouse where you can come in and walk around if you want, or get a agent to come look at it and so forth. And they'll just, you know, take close-up pictures for you too.
So Jeff, what's your take on the $50,000 and up market?
Optimistic. And if I had more than one word, I would say cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
And again, you know, the necessity is a mother, and we needed to go to online auctions, and so we're doing it, and we're doing it the best we can in all the ways that Summer described.
Well, I mean, that's a really good way to put it, and I think you're probably correct on that. Having done that, now let's look at today's offerings. So all of these vehicles are currently for sale on Bring a Trailer in a live auction. Our experts will detail why they pick them, and then look at the value side of the equation, explaining their choices, and then offering their predictions. Summer, I think you go first, and it's a 1975 BMW R90/6. What drew you to this particular Bavarian Airhead?
Well, I know BMWs pretty well. I've had probably, excuse me, 30 of them over the years. I've had some of these before, 70s Airheads. The R90 series was the most popular during this time period, mainly because in America, everybody wants the biggest engine. This bike is a very nice survivor. It is what I call a gentleman's express. It is you know, nice original condition. It's got good mileage on it. The guy has done an excellent job of presenting it. Now, these bikes became, in some ways, like 32 Fords. Guys love to take these over the last 4 or 5 years and make custom modifieds out of them. So sometimes nice original bikes like this disappeared at a kind of an arithmetic rate, and they turn back up with a little solo seat, knobby tires front and rear, no fenders and so forth, and a loud exhaust. So to find one like this condition is refreshing. It's one of those bikes that you can go out and enjoy. It's got an electric starter. This is the first year of no Kickstarter. It's got a disc brake, so it's very manageable in current traffic situations. Yet it's eligible for Antique Motorcycle Club of America road runs and stuff like that. And it's, you know, it's a good attention getter. It's very understated. It's traditional black with white pinstriping, although BMW in the late 60s started doing multicolor, kind of the Joseph Coat approach. But this is a good example of this mark.
Summer, does the disc brake, is that a feature or a bug for a bike of this vintage? I mean, it's obviously better performance, but is it almost too modern for the classic collector?
At this point in time, people seem to be more drawn to the earlier drum brake, which wasn't that good. But, you know, it's just because they have the more traditional look. You know, if I wanted something to go touring, I mean, I would not be afraid to jump on something like this and ride it cross country. I've done it before, and so forth. And this bike looks like it could. They're easy to work on, but it's got, you know, a few modern aspects to it that at this point in time is not attracting collectors like the earlier models are.
Okay, well, let's look at the prediction for this. So the SCM median on this bike is $4,500. What do you think, Summer?
I'm putting this at $8,500. I've seen them sell at this area. They, I think if it was a drum brake, it would bring even more, which you call a /5 series. But it's a nice, honest, clean bike. It's no reserve, which always gets some spirited bidding. You know, Bring a Trailer's kind of become like eBay. Everybody waits until the last minute, hoping everybody else can be psyched out. So we will find out shortly or tomorrow what it goes for.
Okay. Jeff, we'll give you a chance to chime in here. Your first choice is a 1988 Toyota Land Cruiser. What about this SUV?
You know, these are highly prized by folks who do real off-roading and overlanding and things like that. The FJ60 and 62 basically made up the 1980s. The 62 from 88 to 90 or so, and you know, they're great. They're rock solid, bulletproof rigs, and they've been trading really well. Most of them have been selling, excuse me, selling between $20,000 and $45,000 on Bring a Trailer. Some have gone as high as $80,000 for a really clean, ultra low miles rig like that. But then some of them are also modified, and those are pulling big numbers too. There was one with an LS3 that pulled $75,000. This one, you know, has a little rust. It's a little bit worn on the interior, you know, and so it's in fundamentally good condition. And so my prediction for it is that it's gonna hit $20,000. It's currently sitting at $8,500 with a day to go. But I think the action tends to come on the last day. And the median's 26.5. As you can see in this photo, some of the, you know, it's a well-loved example. So I'm thinking it'll come in under the median at the low end of the stock range for these vehicles.
All right. As a final reminder from the boss, if you're enjoying today and need to renew, or you haven't yet joined our wonderful family or want to show you care by giving the gift of SCM, just go to www.sportscarmarket.com/Zoom for a $25 discount on your print and digital subscriptions. And again, that is just $4.33 a month. And before we look at this bubble top summer, I'm going to remind you there is a chat feature at the bottom of your screen. So if you'd like to ask our panel of experts some questions or otherwise provide a comment, please do so. And Brian Baker back at SCM headquarters will do his best to feed those out to me. So some of your second choice is a 1962 Chevy Bel Air 409 4-speed. The bubble top is really attractive. And what about this car is compelling to you?
Well, these were, they've always been popular. This was obviously originally sold for drag racing. It had, or was shipped with what you call radio delete, heater delete. No non-essential hardware on this car to keep it light. This is right at the beginning of the muscle car wars. You know, 61, Chevy came out with a 409, Pontiac came out with a 421. They may have still just had a 389 then, I can't remember. It was an era when people were still driving cars to race them. But you had people like Don Nicholson, Hayden Prophet, who raced these, and they've just always been popular. Like anything that was sold for racing, a lot of them just got butchered. And then later wound up in modified production classes or, you know, getting tubbed for street use and so forth. But this was the top of the line for Chevrolet at that point in time. It's got the dual fours, the 4-speed. This guy, when he did his restoration, is pretty thorough. You know, he has all the proper little tags and different spots like that. He's got all his judging scores. It's been judged very high, and you know, it's probably very much deserving of those points.
So do you think all those details and that ancillary stuff is going to lead to a big number for this?
I do. These cars could, in the past, have really brought some big numbers. I think actually the price is actually starting to come down a little bit on these. These are, like I said, this very early generation muscle cars from the muscle car wars. You know, the next year they just went gonzo. You know, they started having aluminum front caps on some cars, fiberglass front caps. And the factory started kind of moving wheelbases around a little bit and so forth. But this is right at the advent of it all. But I think the people who are interested in that stuff and remember that stuff, they're slowly starting to lose interest in it too.
So are there new people that are going to come up and find these cars interesting, or is everyone that has one or wants one have one?
That's always the $64,000 question. Will other people be coming in? I think there are new people who come into this market, but you know, a lot of this market was driven by nostalgia. A lot of classic car markets are driven by nostalgia. It's people wanting what they couldn't have or they had and they tore up or something like that. And, you know, trends just go forward. There are people who will always recognize this as a very pure example, but I don't know if that means they'll maintain premium price anymore.
All right, so we're looking at a median of $53,000. What do you think the final price will be on this?
I put this at $85,000. I've seen them go for 6 figures. Now, the ones that went for 6 figures had all the chi-chi, I guess you say you want. They're, you know, either red with a red interior or black with a red interior, and so forth. And they're all documented. It's interesting. This car is represented as being a numbers matching. I pursued one of these years ago, and I found in my research that you can't really tell what the engine number was, but you can tell from the code if it had a big block in it, i.e. a 409. So, but anyway, obviously this all matches up. And the good thing is he has the bill sheet, which shows the car, how it was shipped and so forth. And it has, you know, shows all the equipment that is there and present. So that's a real plus for this.
Well, good. We'll see if that strong estimate comes true. Jeff, on a more modern tack, what about this original owner 2015 Alfa Romeo 4C?
I have a personal thing for 4Cs and Alphas in general. I love Alphas, and the 4C just always hit the right notes for me. You know, they brought out the 4C in 2013 as part of the return to the American market. And it's what I call a budget exotic, right? Or a mini exotic. Mid-engine and plenty of performance you know, and it started in the mid 50s when they brought it in. This year, the price of a new one is $67,000. So for the starting price, and for that you get 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and 1.1 Gs on the skid pad. The 4C name, you know, for Alpha enthusiasts, the 4C name harks back to the 20s and 30s and the great Grand Prix cars of that era, and as does the 1750cc displacement, right? That displacement level has a long history with Alpha, so it kind of tickles my historical funny bone, as well as looking great. And to the average person going down the road, the difference between this and a Ferrari is not that much, right? So you get a significant fraction of the bang for an insignificant fraction of the buck on this. And so I think that a nice, well-kept 2015 example. Let me see, what do they got here on mileage? I didn't note the mileage on this one, but it's very well kept. Median says 45.5. My prediction is that it's going to come in right at 45,000. The BAT prices lately have ranged from 41,750 to 69,000. The 69,000 is for really ultra low miles again. Examples, currently this one's sitting at 35.5 when I checked before we got on the call here. 35,444 is where it's sitting right now. I think it'll go up another 10,000 in the last minute bidding and sell right around 45,000.
Perfect. So let's look back at the third round now. Summer, your third selection is another two-wheeled icon. This particular example is a fairly historic one. It's a Pebble Beach veteran. It's a 1957 Norton Manx 350. What do you think this bike will do?
I think it'll do well. I don't know if it'll make reserve. I'm putting this at 35,000, which is actually kind of strong money for a 350 Manx Norton, but that's with what I call the BAT bump too. It's a very well done bike. I actually knew one of the previous owners of this. I didn't realize until I was rereading my notes this morning. It was campaigned seriously. It's got all the matching components, which is unusual for a race bike. Usually, you know, within 2 weeks, they've already trashed something and replaced it. The build was done by, rebuild was done by McIntosh, who's the most respected name in Manx engines around. It's got a lot going for it, but the only thing it has going against it is it's a 350. Everybody wants the 500. It's just like we were talking about earlier on the BMW. In America, everybody wants the big ones. Two, it's got, I noticed it has Acront wheels, which the original fitment would have been a Dunlop rim, but Acront would have probably been better for road racing, which this thing was raced in Arma and all, but it's a very accurate bike. They're beautiful bikes, and it's the soundtrack. If you listen to the video, they really have a nice bark to them. This is really what people think of when you talk about the British racing single. This is what will pop into everybody's mind.
Do you think the strong history of this car is going to propel it into a fairly good number that you talked about, that $35,000 number?
Probably so.
So once again, Summer, so $35,000 for this bike. There is no SCM median, and we'll check back next week and see how you do. We got a question. I'm going to actually pitch to both of you, Jeff, before we get to this really interesting car. Summer talked about the BAT bump. I'm going to ask both of you, what do you think explains that BAT bump? Is it the comfort that comes from having survived the gauntlet of scrutiny from the BAT community by the time the hammer drops, or is it something else? Jeff?
I suppose that's as good an explanation as I've heard for it. The scrutiny, the community comments, which can sometimes just be brutal, and sometimes that brutality is validated. But having survived that, and also I think the lack of any other option at the moment.
Summer, what do you think?
Well, I think it's because all of a sudden you have a whole team of consultants chiming in. Now, all of them don't typically know what they're talking about, but there's a good number of people who do. And it's like anything, you got to way through it, but you can learn a lot. I have learned, if I'm ever particularly interested in something, one of my resources will be to go back and research old BAT auctions and look at comments about stuff. It'll be interesting to see if the new owners learn how to harvest that somehow, but until then it's like free Wikipedia. But I think that really makes people feel more comfortable, especially when they see somebody who has a lot of likes commenting on something. But it's, I think that helps people a lot, as opposed to reading somebody's eBay description where, you wonder if these people had spell check or anything like that. I mean,
I've seen letters from Nigerian princes that were better worded than most eBay descriptions.
oh yeah, yeah, this is true.
I think it's interesting that, the BAT bump I think is real. And I would guess that all of us watching are hopeful that the new owners in Hearst will manage not to do the same thing that they've done with all their other automotive titles. But I guess that remains to be seen. Jeff, we're going to look at your last selection, which is a 2009 Dodge Charger. It's a veteran of the NASCAR Nationwide Series. I think Casey Kane drove this car. What can you tell us about it?
Well, making any kind of a prediction about a used race car for sale is kind of a shot in the dark as far as the prices go. But what you're looking at here is this is a running, driving NASCAR car, race car with provenance. The typical BAT style of the seller says this, or it's represented that. But this one comes with a certificate from Evernham. It says that this was Casey's car, and Casey Kane is a name that anybody who follows NASCAR at all will know. And so what this is, what is for sale right here is an e-ticket into the vintage racing world. There are West Coast and East Coast vintage stock car racing series that you can get in, and some of the drivers get totally into it. And not only is the car maintained in a particular race livery as this one is, but they get a driver's suit made in the same race livery and the helmet and everything else. And so they can kind of go out and do a little cosplay as their favorite NASCAR driver.
So that's better than, I guess, living in their mom's basement doing cosplay and some other character.
It is way better than for example, me getting dressed up as Thor from the movies and, going out. Not that I do that. Not every day, anyway.
That tear in my eyes, Jeff, makes me want to lose them.
Anyway, no, seriously, what you have here, I mean, this is a turnkey race car. It's got a 358, 4-speed, 600 horsepower. It is currently set up for ovals, right? This was an oval track car, and so you're going to need to do some wrenching underneath it to get it set up for road courses, because most of these vintage stock car series run on road courses as well as some ovals. But for a turnkey race car, it's a hell of a deal. And most of these recent BAT auctions for used NASCAR race cars have gone from $8,800 up to $42,000.
What do you think this will do?
What's that?
And what do you think this will do?
I think this one's going to do about 20. The ones, a lot of them trade around the $10,000 mark, and typically those are rollers. They're coming without an engine. This one is ready to race, at least ready to race on an oval. And so I think that I think it's probably going to trade at about 20, and that the person who buys it is going to get what I think is probably right now the best value on BAT. Right? We said we were going to talk about value for your money, and if you want to go vintage racing in a V8 powered car, man, it's hard to decide if you would. Hard to figure out how you would do better than this, because you certainly could not build this car for many multiples of the amount it'll sell for.
Well, I agree, and I'm really curious to see what this will go for. You know, I'd be very interested at that $10,000 mark, although I don't think that's going to be anywhere close to what it comes out at.
At the $10,000 mark, you know, here's my checkbook.
We'll go in together. So we're going to turn things over to you guys out there, and this will be your time to vote at the Zoom poll. And it's which panel member you think will be the most accurate in their estimates. And while you're getting a chance to vote, I know we're running a little long, but I've managed to convince Summer and Jeff, after we're done with this, to stay on for a few minutes, and then we'll unmute everybody and give everyone a chance to talk. I know we got a question that somebody would like to hear us opine more on the purchase of BAT by Hearst, and we can certainly do that when we're done. It's a fascinating topic, and I think it's one that we certainly all have opinions on. So while we tabulate these votes, or whatever Brian is going to do with this, you can vote for me, although I've not guessed a single price here, but I guess that would be the other choice.
That's an unfair advantage, John.
That is an unfair advantage, and I learned that from Mark Donahue, so that's okay. And I guess we're going to have a winner.
Could be non-committal, and that way you always win.
It's exactly right. And while we publish and tabulate what your votes are, remember to come back next week, and we'll see how Jeff and Summer's predictions fared in reality when compared to the final results. While I have the chance, I'd also, if we can get that screen up, like to thank our sponsors, Fantasy Junction, Symbolic Motors, and Intercity Lines, and especially to our own Jim Pickering and Brian Baker, who have done a fantastic job working with a new host, which is not always the easiest thing. And a special thanks, of course, to Jeff and Summer for putting up with this, and also thank you to Keith for letting me fill in for him. And if I can see here, it looks like, Jeff, you have edged out Summer by a fairly significant margin, which of course is entirely accounted for that 11% vote for me. Everyone for that.
Like the Ralph Nader vote.
That's exactly right. I'm going to remind you that this edition of SCM Live has been recorded and will be posted on YouTube in a few days. Here's the subscription special yet again. That is www.sportscarmarket.com/Zoom. That's $4.33 a month. We're going to continue this discussion. I'm going to ask Brian if he can kind of selectively allow you guys the opportunity to unmute yourselves. And we're going to continue this talk because I think it's a fascinating one. And we've got two of the most knowledgeable people in the world. I'm not going to say much about their sartorial choices, but they are very, very knowledgeable in an automotive sense. Summer, what do you think about Hearst's purchase of BAT?
Well, I know that the BAT have been approached numerous times by investors. I think they saw that this thing went from a little cute blog to all of a sudden a real dynamo. I mean, this guy, they built a model up and really got it up and running, and, you know, things like that. People eventually want to cash out, and I'm sure, you know, they will probably be staying on. Typically in deals like that, the original owner stays on for years to kind of, guide the helm, and then, will leave after a while, usually still with a no compete clause in there. But, it'll be interesting to see what direction they take it, and what changes will come along. And I think, any change, people in this community, the BAT community, are going to resist. Because I think a lot of people are just really happy the way it is. And if they're smart, they'll keep it that way. Maybe they could get more online auctions going. You can tell BAT's bumping up the number every day. And problem is, you get so many auctions going, then you start losing some of your better commentators, at least the ones that have a job, and so forth. So, it's hard to say how this will all pan out. It's become an interesting model. Other people have jumped in. Hemmings has started doing it a while back. There's another similar model that popped up in Europe. I've forgotten the name, but I was in contact with the person briefly. So, as like the song, Que sera, sera.
Well, there are other auction sites. BAT's strength and what BAT really isn't an auction site so much as it's an automotive community of really engaged participants. And I think that Hearst would do well, and I know that Randy plans on staying on for the immediate future. Jeff, what do you think about this?
I think you said it perfectly. The best thing Hearst can do is to not try to change anything about the goose that lays the golden eggs.
Well, yeah, and I think that for all of us that remember BAT, when, as Summer said, it was little more than a blog looking at eBay Motors post and kind of turned into this 800-pound gorilla in our community. Randy has done an amazing job of keeping it consistent and true to its original imprimatur, which was to just be entertaining and to be informative. And, I know him fairly well, and he's an amazing custodian for that brand. And I hope that under Hearst management, he'll continue to be that. Jeff, someone wanted to know, and I want to keep this in strictly an automotive context, all right?
Mm-hmm.
In regards to that NASCAR car, where else can you have this much fun for so little money?
With your clothes on, not so much.
I mean, the ability to turn right once this car gets modified for road course racing and left, I think is great. And I've been on weekends where they've had these NASCAR vehicles running, and the sound they make is pretty incredible. And I think you're right, for that guy that loves NASCAR, and it gives him the chance to be a hero. It's not unlike the guys that have the real money and can buy P-51 Mustangs and relive their World War II ace fantasies.
Right.
You get to drive the real deal, wearing the same clothes and the same protective equipment that their heroes do. So I think it's a really good opportunity at almost any price of under $20,000.
Well, look at it this way. For if you have $20,000 and this car sells at that price, what else can you buy with that? You can't buy an SCCA spec racer for that much money. You could probably buy a mid-pack spec Miata for that kind of money.
Well, you're exactly right.
And we've had vintage stock cars race at Portland, where I am, many times, and a lot of these guys put passenger seats in them, and they'll take you for a ride at lunchtime. And I've been around the track with a good driver in one of these cars, and man, it is a hoot. It'll pin your head to the seat back in the going down the straights, and they are remarkably strong in the corners. They are a workout. These guys get out of these cars and they have, they've had their daily workout, muscling them around the track. But like I said, bang for your buck. this is probably the best value that I found on Bring a Trailer today.
Well, Jeff, as SCM's Affordable Car Guru, you got another question, but I'm actually going to also ask Brian to unmute himself because I think I'd like to have him pitch in on this because he's—
Yeah, Brian is really the man on this more than I am. All I can say is my dad bought one of these when they were brand new, just first on the dealership in late 1969, bought a 1970 240Z. I learned how to drive stick in that car about 10 years later. And, you know, they are fantastic cars. They are, if you ask somebody, you know, about that generation of Japanese sports cars that are becoming collectible, 240Z is the first thing that pops into people's minds. And rightly so. They're phenomenal cars. They're super fun to drive. And why wouldn't you want one? So I think that right there explains the record prices that we've seen in conventional auctions last year and on BAT.
Yeah.
Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Do you think these prices are sustainable?
I think some of it will trickle down to 260 and 280Zs as they're more cheaper right now, but people want to get in for that body shape and that feel, but they don't really care about it being carbureted or not.
So Brian, do you think we're going to have the 912 effect that as, you know, the 911 prices kind of reached the stratosphere, it pulled up the 912s that have the same shape?
I think so. I don't think the 2+2 is going to come up as much as 280Zs will because of the long, awkward shape of them.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's totally possible.
So Summer, I know this is two wheels too many for you, but do you have an opinion?
Well, several. Back on the Dodge, years ago, I took the NASCAR experience in one of those and drove one. It looks fun, but it's excruciating. I mean, you think you're hot in that place. It's, you know, about 130 inside that car with not a whole lot of ventilation. My son and I did it together. He smoked me. I said, boy, I sent him to the wrong school, you know. But the other thing is people say, oh, I'm going to buy that. But now you got to think about other things you need. You need a tow vehicle. You need a trailer. Bring a trailer naturally. And, you know, the gas for those, I go down and buy a race gas. It's, you know, $8 a gallon for 110 and so forth. So it's fun, but it gets expensive and all. On the 240Z, I had one back in the 70s. It was a great car. Mine had 200,000 miles on it, and it was still running along perfectly. Mine had kind of a hot rodded engine. It had 3 two-barrel Delotros. Mine was a 73. 73s, they had carburation issues because of emissions control starting to kick in more and all. They're great cars. I think they are a commodity car because they had serious rust issues. I used to go around to salvage yards. You can find them with good engines, and I'd look for the 70, 71 and 72s just so I could get the carburetors off of them and resell them to people that had 73s. But they're very comfortable. I mean, I'm 6'4". I had to scoot the seat up just a little bit to drive it and all. So I think they'll continue in value. They're really a truly beautiful car and very practical car.
No, I don't think there's any argument that it's a landmark car, and certainly as the values climb, I think it will pull up the values of the associated subsequent models. Summer, by the way, I would like to borrow your phrase, fun but excruciating, when I write the chronicle of my dating history. I think that encapsulates it perfectly. So we are, I think, almost 15 minutes or so beyond the point that we were going to end this. I'd just like to thank Summer and Jeff for spending so much time with us. Thank you all for your patience. That'll wrap it up for today, but thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again next week at the same time and place. And best wishes for your thoughtful and informed collecting. Stay safe out there, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.